Hi everyone, Deanna King here, and on this channel we discuss all things narcissism and codependency. And in today's topic, we're going to be discussing 5 ways in which the narcissist feels and actually is losing control over you, and how they're more likely going to respond when they feel that they're losing this control. So what happens after being with a narcissist for so long is we start to see their games, and we start to really get fed up, and then we start to change. We do things differently. And when the narcissist starts to see these different behavioral patterns in us changing, they not only feel that they're losing control, they really are losing control at this point. So let's take a look at the changes that we make that make the narcissist see the loss of control over us. Number 1, we start doing less for them. All the little things that we used to do become drastically reduced. It starts small and it progresses into doing less and less. For example, you may be making lunches and dinners for them every single day, but you start to notice little things such as snack time. Every time that you have a snack, you always make sure that you're going to prepare snacks for them. But over and over again, when they prepare snacks, there is zero thought of offering anything for you. You also notice a pattern in dinner making. On the days that you're late coming home, or you're ill, or you're swamped in work, they're going to make their own dinners, and they're never going to offer to make anything for you. The only thing that they leave for you is the mess to clean up. So after seeing this time and time again, you start slacking off on the service. You might start with skipping lunches once in a while, but even there, you yourself won't even have lunch because the guilt of making for you only at this point isn't fathomable. But after a while, you toughen up. The more that you observe the selfishness on their part, that guilt starts to fade. What's interesting to observe, though, is that no matter how many times that you've witnessed them fending for themselves without ever offering anything up, the very first time that you make something for you alone, they immediately let you know. Comments like, "What? You made dinner for you and nothing for me?" Talk about mind-blowing hearing these words spew out of their mouths. And then eventually you drop more and more dinners and lunches without feeling any sense of remorse. And I use lunches and dinners here as an example, but it could be anything that you do for them. So you'll start to do less and less for them as per service. Number 2, you walk away from their discussions, aka attacks. The narcissist is always looking for ways to bait you and gaslight you. They want that fight. And at the beginning, you think that all of these incidents are misunderstandings, so you insist as much as they to argue it out in order to get them to understand that a behavior, for example, on their part wasn't acceptable. Or you try to convince them that they indeed said what they said and did what they said they didn't do. And all of these fights cause so much stress and frustration, as they always seem to lead to being stonewalled and ongoing days of silent treatment. And all you want in this is to bring back peace and harmony in the relationship, so you find yourself writing emails and letters. I mean, how many of you have done that? And so you edit the emails over and over to make sure that you get it just right. You make sure that it's perfectly clear in the message that you want to relay, and to make sure that you're not going to get attacked over using one wrong word. But regardless, it still backfires on you, because no matter how careful that you were, a letter of denigration, hurtful words, and attacks is what is returned to you. And at one point, you just stop writing the letters. But now they up the ante with debating. They're going to insist on having a conversation over what happened. See, they still want to fight. They'll act as though they're willing to resolve, but within minutes of talking, everything escalates again. You're being put down again, or when your turn comes to speak, you're interrupted with explosive remarks. You get up to leave, and then they guilt you into sitting back down with statements that you just don't care enough about the relationship to work it out. But when you do sit back down, It's the same game all over again. So after a time, you just walk away without turning around. You know that no matter what, nothing is going to change. And when you're at that point, the only reason that you're still in the relationship is that you haven't figured out how to leave yet. Whether that's due to financial reasons, the children, business, or any property that you might own. But once you cross that threshold of no longer wanting to talk things through with them, is when you've lost all hope that anything is ever going to change. There isn't even a desire to seek counseling for the both of you if they put that one on the table as an option. I mean, you might even agree to go, but at this point, you're just going through the motions here, just to avoid more of their fits. As for them, it's just another manipulation tactic here to keep the control. Number 3, you start getting out more. In the beginning of the relationship, you hoped to spend time with them. I mean, anybody who's in a relationship wants to spend time with their partners, right? But with them, you've tried everything from looking your best to doing nice things for them to bargaining with them. And maybe the no that you received after asking them for date nights once a week turns into suggesting sitting in a park with them on Saturday afternoons, and that also becomes another no. And so now you try to bargain that they perhaps sit with you in the backyard over a cup of coffee after dinners. But no matter how you try to spend time with them, it's always a no. But somehow, in your mind, in order to survive, I suppose, you rationalize all of this with the fact that, well, they themselves don't go out, or they've convinced you that they're autistic. A lot of narcissists like to use that one as an excuse. So you count your lucky stars that they come home at night and they don't go to bars like others do. And they just quietly read and research on their computers. But regardless, you are alone. You are alone all the time. And since they don't go out, you stay home also. However, there comes a time where you start to realize that not only will they not have a date night with you once in a while, they don't even spend time with you on your birthday or Valentine's Day. And I mean, not even in the house with you. You never matter to them. Your mother dies, and the last thing you want is to be alone, but they couldn't be bothered. And at this point, you also couldn't be bothered with what they think. So you start having friends over. You start getting out more. You start going for walks. You take yourself out to dinner. You go to yard sales. Because there comes a time where you are no longer willing to sacrifice all of your days and nights alone in case they might spend 5 whole minutes with you. And you also realize that throughout all the times that they appeared to be all quiet and by themselves, they were never alone. The whole time they were being entertained on social media or playing online poker with others or on dating sites or even porn sites. Being alone is the last thing that they are. But you're completely alone, waiting for a moment for them to say hello. And this is extremely unhealthy for anyone to go through. So like I said, after some time, enough is enough. And you're now out and about getting some parts of your life back. And it may be small things, but these small things are more little steps towards your healing. Number 4, you start to say no. Narcissists do not like the word no, and they hate it at all costs. When you start to say no, they begin to understand that they're losing control over you at this point. Perhaps you've always been there for them when they need a ride or needed to borrow your vehicle or needed money. Now when they need something, your responses are something like, I'm sorry, I'm not available today, or I need my vehicle, or I don't have time to go to the bank for you. Or perhaps you've always been available to cover for them if they don't want to go into work. For example, letting their boss know that they're not going to be coming in today. And now you're telling them that you're not comfortable with lying for them and you don't want to do this anymore. Maybe you're not taking responsibility for taking the kids to their baseball games that was their turn to do and wanted you to cover for them so that they can hang out with their friends. You've grown tired of taking on their responsibilities when they always give you a no on serious matters. And no matter how many times that they've refused to help you out in situations, saying no to them even once becomes a serious matter. And no to a narcissist is a big fat rejection to them. and they're going to resent you for it. When you say no to a narcissist, they feel that they have lost control. They can't manipulate you in getting their way. I mean, don't you know that your purpose in this relationship is to take care of their every whim? Don't you know that you are merely an extension of them? Don't you know that you are a servant? Saying no means that you are no longer willing to do your job. Not allowing them to control you means that you are betraying them. The servant isn't doing its job. The servant is getting ready to quit, and now they're thinking, I'm going to be left alone to fend for myself. How dare they? And you can bet that all along with anger and frustration comes resentment and contempt. And once the narcissist has reached a level of contempt, it's pretty much game over. And number 5, the narcissist knows that they are losing control over you when you start to treat them the way that they treat you. You get so fed up with being treated so horribly that you now turn on them. It's like the fight or flight response that you see in factories where the employers harass the employees by placing them in a fear place if they don't produce incredible amounts of production. For a while it works, and people are running on adrenaline trying to attain the impossible in fear of losing their jobs. But the thing is that adrenaline is always temporary. Adrenaline is used for emergency purposes only. It's used for cramming for exams, for example, or having to lift a boulder off of someone in order to save them. All the blood rushes to the muscles in order to give the needed strength that they need, but it can only sustain a small amount of time because the blood soon returns back to its intended organs and the body loses its power. It cannot sustain. And so you'll see these workers working like madmen trying to produce, and for a while it works. But after a while, you'll see an abrupt and sudden shift where they'll either just quit or they're going to protest. But whatever they choose, they're no longer willing to put up with it any longer. And same goes for victims of narcissistic abuse. If they're verbally abused, they're going to verbally abuse them back. If the narcissist snaps at them, they're going to snap back. So for those of you witnessing a sudden change in your own behavior with self and questioning if you yourself are a narcissist, you're not. You're in flight mode at this point. The narcissist is going to be confused also with this newfound behavior, and they're also going to be afraid. Narcissists are terrified of being abandoned, and if you're disrespecting them like that, you are no longer valuing them. You are no longer looking up to them or needing them. Regardless, they're going to be left feeling bewildered. I remember the first time that I spoke to the narcissist in my life at the time in the same manner that he spoke to me. He came in the room that I was in to ask a question, and I just looked at him with hatred in my eyes, and I said, "What?" in that very tone. He was so taken aback by this that his whole body literally shifted back, and in his shock, he tried to say something, but he stuttered and ended up saying something like, with a really confused look on his face, and he said, you don't ever talk to me like that. I do." And in that moment, I had my question answered regarding whether narcissists know what they're doing when they're being abusive. Okay, so these 5 behavioral changes that take place in you is clear to the narcissist that they've lost control over you. And they're not going to have that lying down. So there are a few things that they're going to do to regain that control and dominance over you. So 1, they're going to up the ante. They will try even harder to make you afraid, because making you afraid is what has always worked for them in the past. They're going to bait you into more fights because at this point they're desperate for any kind of attention or acknowledgement or to gain that control back. Another tactic that they're going to use is love bombing, of course. If, for example, you start getting out more, they'll play nice with you in order to get you back in the house. And of course, this is only going to be temporary, because as soon as they have you sitting back down on that couch, they're going to return to their old ways where you will be alone and isolated once again. Or they might even break apart in your vehicle in order to stop you from leaving the house. Once you say no to them and treat them the way that they treat you, that's when you're going to see resentment turn into permanent contempt. That's where the smear campaigns will start, turning everyone against you with lies and portraying you as the abuser or mentally unstable. The fight that you once thought was over the top is going to be nothing compared to the fights that you're going to experience now. Everything is going to become intensified. And so you finally get a clear look at the monster that's been sleeping in your bed. Narcissism it's a serious, serious matter. And I hope that all you guys and gals out there can get out sooner than later. I will leave you with all of this, and we shall see you in the next video. Take care of yourselves and be safe. Bye for now.